Number 3. The Albert Ostman Abduction. In 1924, Canadian prospector Albert Ostman was vacationing in the wilderness of British Columbia. One warm summer night, he decided to set up camp in a remote area of the woods near Toba Inlet. According to Ostman, at some point in the middle of the night, he was awoken as a Sasquatch picked him up, sleeping bag and all, slung him over its shoulder, and carried him away. Hours later, the creature set him down, and he was astonished to see himself surrounded by 4 other Sasquatches. Although he had his gun with him, he did not want to shoot them, as they did not attempt to harm him in any way. The 4 creatures kept him captive for 6 days, during which time they fed him sweet-tasting grass and roots, and the largest of the group, whom Ostman referred to as the Old Man, became increasingly addicted to Ostman's snuff, a form of inhalable tobacco. It was the snuff which eventually led to his escape. On the 6th day, the Old Man was fed a large quantity of snuff by Ostman, which caused him to become disoriented. Ostman then fired his gun into the air, startling the other creatures, and he fled. An interesting aspect of Ostman's story is that he did not report it until 1957, 24 years after his experience, because he feared people would think he was crazy. It was only after an increase of reported Sasquatch sightings in the area that he came forward. Police magistrate A.M. Naismith, who interviewed Ostman, wrote an affidavit which states, "I found Mr. Ostman to be a man of 64 years of age, in full possession of his mental faculties, of pleasant manner, and with a good sense of humor. I questioned Mr. Ostman thoroughly in reference to the story given. I cross-examined him and used every means to endeavor to find a flaw in either his personality or his story, but could find neither." So, what really happened to Ostman? Did he have a very vivid dream, which years later, after the fact, he was unable to differentiate from reality? Did he just make the whole thing up? Or was his experience, in fact, genuine? Number 2. The Bigfoot 911 call. The following is a recording of a 911 call placed in Kitsap Peninsula, Washington State in 1990. Although Bigfoot is never mentioned explicitly during the call, most who have listened to it believe that the figure being described by the caller is none other than the Sasquatch. Have a listen for yourself.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something. It looks like a man. I don't know what it was, just that it ran across the yard.
Okay. You've had problems in the neighborhood before?
Yeah, my dog was killed here just recently. I don't know what it was. Whatever it is, it's running. I couldn't catch it if I was going to chase it. But whatever it was standing up. I'm out here looking through the window now and I don't see anything. I don't want to go outside. Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Dio!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Oh, and the guy is on foot.
I don't know what... It's a big... real big person. That's all I can say.
Okay, but it is a person.
Yeah, I'd say it was a person, somebody really big. But he's all in black.
Is he a black male or a white male? Did you actually see whether, or was he just wearing black?
He's all black and he's big.
The police did show up to the caller's house, but by that time, the figure was gone. It is unknown if the caller was ever harassed by the creature again. Number 1. Russell Welch and the Disappearance of Teresa Ann Beer. On June 1st, 1987, 16-year-old Teresa Ann Beer left her home in Fresno, California, to go on a camping trip in the Sierra Mountains with Russell Welch. The purpose of the trip was to search for Bigfoot. Welch, who was 43 years old at the time, was a well-known Bigfoot enthusiast in the area who claimed to have had several encounters with the creatures. Several days later, Welch returned to Fresno without Teresa, and as a few more days passed without Teresa returning or contacting her family, Welch was brought in by police for questioning as a suspect in her disappearance. At first, Welch claimed that Teresa ran away from him into the wilderness, but he later changed his story, claiming that he and Teresa had briefly become separated in the woods, and when he caught sight of her again, he witnessed Bigfoot grab her and carry her away, a story which brings to mind Ostman's purported abduction over 60 years prior. He said he was afraid to tell the truth at first because he thought no one would believe him, and stuck to his Bigfoot abduction story under repeated questioning. Police searched the area where Teresa and Welch were camping without locating any evidence relating to her disappearance. Welch was charged with child stealing, a charge which carried a sentence of up to 4 years. While awaiting trial, Welch was offered a deal. If he would sign a waiver granting prosecutors the right to charge him with murder if Teresa's body was ever found, he would only face a 1-year sentence on the child stealing charge. Welch refused the deal, and days later, all charges against him were dropped. This was done to ensure that if Teresa's body was located at a later date, that Welch could be charged with murder without running afoul of double jeopardy laws, and because it was thought that the lack of evidence against him would make a trial unlikely to result in a conviction. Many have said that it is bizarre that Welch continued to stick by his story, pointing out that if he had killed Teresa, his original story of Teresa running away into the woods would have been far more plausible. At least some authorities are not convinced that he was responsible for her disappearance and presumed murder, as Teresa is listed as a possible victim of Lauren Herzog and Wesley Shermantine, known as the Speed Freak Killers, who officially murdered 4 people but are suspected of killing as many as 72 people between the mid-1980s and late 1990s. The reason why they are considered possible suspects in Teresa's case has not been made public. Welch seems to have lived a private life in the years since Teresa's abduction, as almost no information about him can be found online. If he is still alive, he would be in his mid-70s at the time of this video. Teresa Ann Beer has never been found and remains listed as a missing person. Thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to subscribe, like, and check back often for new videos.